What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by PodDeecks, fueled by Goat Fuel. I so desperately want to be in good spirits and be happy and excited to be here, but that is not the case today. Because the Green Bay Packers suck. They have been a load of garbage. So before we get into the Packers and all the other stuff we have in store for you guys today, what's up, Emmitt? I know you're doing the same I'm doing because we're both Packers.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good personally, but yeah, this season's gone worse than I could have possibly imagined. Hey, babe, a good thing. It does not get any easier. The Bills coming off of their bye week on Sunday Night Football national television is our next game. Whew. Oh man.
There comes a point in every sports fan's life when their team falls on dark times, right? And in some instances, there are some fans whose dark times have lasted a lot longer than others. There's some fans whose teams are new to dark times. So 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 if you were a Bills fan and you were alive when the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls and couldn't win one, if you're a Commanders fan of any generation, a Cowboys fan born in the last 25 years, a Giants fan born in the modern era, if you're a Rockets fan right now, a Thunder fan right now, a Jazz fan right now, if you've been a Jets fan for most of the 2000s, I just want to know if there's any room on the couch of depression because I think Packers fans need a seat on the couch. It hasn't been good. And I think we've been spoiled. I have an all-time great quarterback at under center for all these years, and so our dark times have been sporadic. Right, like when Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone against the Vikings a couple years ago, that was tough, but we got back from it. When he got hurt 2 years before that, or 2 years after that, whichever one it was, that season was dark. We didn't fall on dark. Packers fans are officially we have reached dark times. There is no end in sight, and I feel like this might be my karma for having taken my victory lap on the Denver Broncos. And to all you Broncos fans out there, I'm sorry for being so rude and so disrespectful to Russell Wilson and to your franchise. But yeah, man, it's not looking good for us Packers folks. And There's no silver lining. I don't see any end to the misery anytime soon.
Yeah, if we're not already in dark times, we're on dark times watch. That's for sure. We are at best case scenario, we are in line. We are in line for dark times again. Realistically, throughout my lifetime, our real only dark times that I've got to really watch was, and these are real dark times, not losing in the NFC Championship dark times. So that's different. But like 2017 and 2018, but 17, Rodgers broke his collarbone. 18, we had a light at the end of the tunnel. We got Mike McCarthy fired. Yeah, fixing this one's going to be tough and dang near impossible, to be honest with you. So yeah, we are definitely in dark times. We're in line for sure.
I told everyone on Twitter that I wasn't going to have a show this week if we lost to the Commanders, but
I wouldn't have blamed you.
I just couldn't let the Commanders get 2 wins on me in 1 week. So I figured I'd go ahead and have this show anyway. But this isn't fun. This is fun. Now, here's what I will say, right? And shame on you, and shame on Justin Marvel, and shame on all you other Packers fans out there that thought that the Packers would go to the Super Bowl. That's just unrealistic.
Yeah, that's
extremely unrealistic. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that I thought that our chances of making it to the Super Bowl did exist because we're a run-first football team now. And that's how most of the teams that have made it to the Super Bowl in the last 5 to 6 years have got it. It's by run first. But when you have your head coach, and Matt LaFleur, who also calls the plays, get up not once, not twice, but like 3 times now, post-game and say, man, Aaron Jones isn't getting enough touches is bothersome when Matt LaFleur is calling the plays. I don't understand what you expect us to do with that information. You are calling the plays. You are the reason why Aaron Jones isn't getting. And here's the thing: the thing that makes this worse is that the trade deadline is coming up, and there's Packers fans out there that think that the Packers are going to be active on the trade deadline. When have the Packers ever been active prior to the trade deadline? I can't name a time in the last 15 years that the Packers were active. You got Roquan Smith. I'm sorry, not Roquan Smith. Was it Roquan Smith? No, it wasn't Roquan Smith. You got Robert Quinn just got traded today to the Eagles. You got Robbie Anderson's been traded. Christian McCaffrey's been traded. Everyone's like, oh, let's go trade for DJ Moore. Bro, we're not going to trade for DJ Moore. We're not. We're not going to sign Odell Beckham Jr. We're not going to trade for any other second string wide receiver anywhere else. Allen Lazard's arm is in a sling, and I bet your bottom dollar Aaron Jones isn't going to get more than 10 touches in the game on Sunday. So it's really not looking good for we. You're right. We might not be in dark times 100%, but we are dark times adjacent. Like there was a line for teams that are in dark times. Like our number is coming up probably at the end of Sunday night because it's not fun being a Packers fan right now, and there's no end in sight, and there is no reasonable solution. There is no digging us out of this hole. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. There is no immediate end to this suffering. This is going to be a slow and painful roast, a slow and painful suffering from now until January. And then what will have to happen is the dark times will be compounded because there's going to be teams in the NFC that are in the playoffs that the Packers, if they just did what they were supposed to do, could beat in the playoffs. Just like last year, we lost in the division round. We could have very well easily made it to the Super Bowl last year when you look at all the teams that made it through the end. It is no, forget dark. We there, bro. We're there. Like our number's been called. Like blue 42. Like we're here. Like where we are. We're there, bro. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, and just to get into it, man. I mean, offensively, I probably should have seen this coming, and the Packers, to be super honest, should have seen it coming. Right? You take a look at that depth chart. It's not impressive whatsoever, right? Allen Lazard being your number one receiver, I don't think that's passable by anyone's standards. Especially now, Sammy Watkins being your number two. Yikes! All of the talk coming out now is that the player that the Packers are most in on at the trade deadline, if you think they're going to do anything at all, I wouldn't bet on it. But if you think they're going to do anything at all, is AJ Green. And what does AJ Green do better than anyone on this team? Nothing. To be super honest with you, what the Packers do need is someone to stretch the field. You take a look, and really, it all is what happened on draft night. If you really take a look at it, Christian Watson, they basically spent a second-round pick, 2 second-round picks. They traded up to whatever it was, the 34th overall pick, and drafted a 6'5" gadget guy who can't stay healthy with their. That's what they turned half of Devontae Adams into. And then the other half of it was Quay Walker, who didn't have his first good game until last week, which we still wound up losing to Taylor Heineke. Throughout the rest of this, I think the only person on our team who has wide receiver one potential currently right now is probably Romeo Doubs. But that being said, that's way too much pressure to put on a rookie 4th round pick wide receiver. Offensively, I mean, you touched on it already. Aaron Jones needs to be touching the ball, and it's honestly so beyond frustrating to hear them post game. We need to get Aaron Jones the ball. He needs to be getting more touches. It's like, well, you're the coach and the quarterback. You're the two people who can make it happen. LaFleur, you call the plays. Rodgers, you're in the huddle calling the plays, and you're also the one making the reads in the pass game. You're the one who should be getting him touches. You take a look at that game against Washington. He got 7 touches on the first 2 drives. He got the first 4 touches of the game. And then in the remaining 51 minutes of the game, he touched the ball 10 times. I'm not exactly sure how many drives they had the rest of the game, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he was averaging something about, for the rest of the game, 1 touch a drive, which for your best offensive player, which I think everyone realizes is their best offensive player, that's unacceptable. They weren't running the balls particularly well, and I think, honestly, for me, they're giving AJ, I don't know how you feel about this, Marcus, but they're giving A.J. Dillon way too many snaps. Way too many snaps.
I'm just mentally exhausted. I'm mentally drained.
Yeah. I get it. There.
Put into words. Can we? Damn that. What is it going to take? Someone needs to come with a lock, a ball, and a chain, and sit Amari Rodgers' ass down on the bench and don't let him get off of it. Like, he needs to be number 53 on the depth chart, and he needs to be the water boy. I am so sick of seeing Amari Rodgers muff punts and kickoffs. And if he muffs another one, I'm going to lose my mind. Amari Rodgers is god awful. He's awful. He's terrible. He is disgustingly bad. It is ridiculous. You drafted him 2 years ago. You bring back Randall Cobb to kind of foster the relationship there and kind of get him going, and that didn't work out. So now you're just the kickoff, man. He has been reduced to the Ty Montgomery role, and he's doing worse than Ty Montgomery was doing when he was doing it. I mean, my damn. Yeah. Amari Rodgers sucks. He is god awful. He has been terrible. He muffs at least one punt a game. It is absurd. And you're putting him in the passing game, and he's actually getting targets. He's getting looks. He's getting the ball is being thrown in his direction. It's absurd. Now, I'd like to sit here and I'd like to say that I didn't see this coming. But again, this has been a good season for me. A lot of the things that I said would happen have happened. I said the Broncos would suck. The Broncos suck. I said the Jags could win the AFC South, and I think so far they might be first or second in the AFC South right now. I thought the Cowboys would be able to hang on without Dak Prescott. They've hung on without Dak Prescott. I thought that the Packers weren't going to be Super Bowl material, but I didn't think they would be this gosh darn bad. The Packers are terrible. And when you look at the teams in the NFC that are better than them, it's the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Lions, I think, are better than the Packers, even though the record doesn't show it. But, like, let's be honest. The Lions are better than the Green Bay Packers right now.
Offensively,
the San Francisco 49ers are better than the Green Bay Packers. The Seattle Seahawks are better than we are talking about a scenario where the reigning two-time back-to-back league MVP is he is the quarterback of an offense that is ranked close to last in like almost everything. But he has 11 touchdowns, which it leads the NFC. I don't care that 11 passing touchdowns leads the NFC. The Eagles are undefeated. The Giants are 6-1. The Cowboys are 5-2 now. The Seahawks are 4-3. We lost to the Washington Commanders. What are we doing? I am at such a loss for words right now. I can't begin to explain in a PG way just how frustrated I am with the offense. Now, the defense is disgusting. Like, this is supposed to be a top 5 defensive unit, and it ain't. And it hasn't even been top 10. To your point, Quay Walker has had one good game all season. It was this past week against the Commanders. Jair Alexander has been Jair Alexander, sure. Devondre Campbell had a pick 6 in the game against the Commanders. That was nice. But aside from that, he's been awfully quiet. Preston Smith, very quiet. I can't even think of other players on the roster right now because of how frustrated I am. They're not showing up and doing their job. We sat here, we listened all off season. We listened to Gutekunst, listened to Mark Murphy, listened to Matt LaFleur, we listened to Aaron Rodgers. Everyone said, "Oh, this is going to be a defensive anchor team. We're focusing on the defense," and the defense sucks. The defense sucks. Like, and it's not even like a mediocre, like an average defense. This defense has been below average again in almost everything. And to top it all off, this is the worst fourth quarter football team. Not just offense, not just defense. This is the worst fourth quarter football team in the NFL. And that includes a team in the Baltimore Ravens that have blown 3 double-digit leads this season. The Green Bay Packers suck. Dark times are upon us. And I have nothing positive left to say about the Packers. I'm always trying to have the light at the end of the tunnel. Like when we had a couple years ago, when Aaron Rodgers was starting to leave, I was like, oh, no, he's going to come back. We're going to be fine. And then Devontae Adams was kind of leaving. I was like, oh, no, he's going to come back. We're going to be fine. I have no more positivity. The glass is not half full. It's not half anything. The glass is, damn it, the glass is empty. Like, this team sucks. There's nothing left. This team is empty. It is bereft of talent. It is bereft of usefulness. Like right now, the TCU Horned Frogs could probably beat the Green Bay Packers in a football team. The Alabama Crimson Tide could probably beat the Green Bay Packers in a football game right now. The Packers suck. Like,
yeah, they're
god awful.
They're not playing well. They're really not playing well. And I think really the problem is, at least from an outside perspective, all of their problems I think are solvable, but they don't have the people in place to be able to solve them, right? Obviously, wide receiving core, that's a huge issue. But truly at this point, you're 3-4. You just lost back-to-back games to Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Taylor Heineke. I doubt Odell Beckham Jr. is even going to want to come play here. Unless you're beating the Bills and you wind up going on some magical run, I wouldn't bet on it. So that's something that's fixable, but they're not going to do it. I obviously all the trade or the wide receivers on the trade block. DJ Moore, I don't think I'm a huge fan of in terms of going out and getting him for what the draft capital is going to cost, because his new contract, I believe it kicks in. It might be next year or the year after. You have him on under contract for whatever the 3 years that they signed him to. But if you're going to go out and get a guy, because apparently I think it was Jordan Schultz, and I take everything he says with a massive grain of salt because I don't trust him too much. But he said that they're looking at young wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy's apparently on the market. If they go and get him, I might change my tune a little bit, but the Packers don't like giving up prime draft capital for receivers unless it's Christian Watson, apparently. But that one's fixable, but I don't think that they're going to go do it. Then you take a look at the defense. Joe Barry has to get out of there. They have to get him out of there. However, we know that they won't. It's fixable, but they're not going to do it. And you talked about Amari Rodgers, and the stat halfway through that Commanders game before he got 2 catches kind of on that last drive, he had 5 career catches and 5 career fumbles. That's not a good stat. That's not a good stat. And I think a lot of people were questioning when Aaron Rodgers kind of called him out a couple weeks ago. People were like, oh, what about Amari Rodgers and his role in the offense? He's like, oh, he's returning for us now. And people are calling Rodgers a bad leader. And I think he's probably not a great leader, but that's not one of the reasons. If anyone who has watched Amari Rodgers play football knows why knows why he should be not playing at all, but they know why he's returning and not playing on the offense. I think there
are a handful of receivers in this league that have returned kicks. Deshaun Jackson was a very good kick returner. Devin Hester's the greatest kick returner we've ever seen. Jacoby Jones ran back a kick in the Super Bowl. It's actually the longest kick return in the history of the Super Bowl. We've seen Tyreek Hill run back kicks. We've seen OBJ run back kicks. You know the difference between those players and Amari Rodgers? They were doing it because they could. Because it was a thing to liven up special teams. Amari Rodgers is so god-awfully bad that they put him on the special teams unit to say, maybe this is how you earn your money. And he sucks at that. It's like when you're in school and you're getting picked like to play football or something, and no one really wants to pick you, but they pick you anyway, and they just use you as like a decoy, but you're not even a decoy because no one's going to throw you the ball. It's like just being an extra body on a basketball team. It's like
I can't hear you.
I'm so upset.
We are.
It's like being the goalkeeper for a team that plays really good offense and really great defense. You have no purpose. Amari Rodgers has no purpose. And the one thing he was doing to get his money, he sucks at it. He is god awful. Ball and chain. Handcuff him to the bench in the locker room. Like, don't even let him suit up and walk onto the field because he's terrible at his job.
Well, honestly, and the problem that we're seeing here now is that I don't even know if they're going to have a choice. Right? Well, obviously, Christian Watson, he returned to practice today, but Alan Lazard, you said his arm was in a sling. Randall Cobb, he's on IR. Sammy Watkins is still coming back from an injury, and he didn't look super great last week. So it looks like it truly does look like for the game against the Buffalo Bills, our top 3 wide receivers are probably going to be Dobbs, maybe Watson. I'm going to say probably a no on Watson, but it's going to be Dobbs, Sammy Watkins, and it might wind up being Amari Rodgers. It's not looking good. The Packers offense, it's truly mind-blowing that this team refuses to spend premier draft capital. I didn't like that they traded away Devontae Adams, but you did what you had to do. But man, the reason because everybody's comparing, Patrick Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill and Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams, and how's that going for him? Well, one, I think at this point in time, Patrick Mahomes is better than Aaron Rodgers, and I think that that's fair to say. On the other hand, you know how the Chiefs reacted? Juju, MVS. Then they went out and then they drafted Sky Moore. You know what the Packers did? They spent, again, second-round gadget guy, Romeo Doubs, who's a fourth-round pick, and they're basically trying to make him their number one overall wide receiver, or their number one wide receiver, and sign Sammy Watkins. Like, the Packers lost their top two wide receivers after the season last year, and made no real effort to solve it, at least immediately. And honestly, at this point in time, trading your draft capital to get a wide receiver in the middle of this season, when realistically probably nothing's going to happen, you're probably going to wind up missing the playoffs. It's not good. Before they lost that game against the Commanders, I wouldn't have been happy about it, but I could have definitely come in here and been like, we come in, let's say we win last week, we lose this week. We'd been 4-4, and I could have been like, well, our losses were to the 5-1 Vikings, the 6-1 Bills, the 5-1 or the whatever it is, 6-1 Giants, the 5-2 Jets. Hey, those aren't horrible losses. But no, they are bad losses, because I'm sure you and me think very similarly. I don't buy the Jets and I don't buy the Giants. Those are bad losses. Really, really, really bad losses. And again, there's no fixing it in sight. When you have a front office as inept as the Packers front office when it comes to, I don't know, getting talent offensively, and not just, taking a flyer on some tall, fast guy who has bad hands. Because, I mean, what, you and me on draft night, I was screaming for George Pickens at 22. I was screaming for him at 28. I was screaming for him at 34. I wanted him the entire time. And who looks like the best rookie wide receiver? Shocker. George Pickens, the dude who had hands in college, the dude who can run block in college, the dude who I don't think had any injury issues in college, the dude who was fantastic going up against the best of the best in the SEC. And they took an FCS wide receiver with drop issues. It makes no sense.
I came into this season, I was excited. Because of the schedule, and I thought we would have. Let's be honest. Personally, I was really looking forward to playing the NFC East. I have family that's Giants fans. They've texted me and sent me memes. I have family that's Commanders fans. They've texted me and sent me memes. I have a friend. One of my best friends is a Cowboys fan. We spent the last 8 months talking trash to each other. I have no more trash left to talk. Like I cannot, in good conscience, unless a switch is flipped and the Packers smoke the Bills on Sunday, which is not going to happen. I have no more trash left to give. I can't even come for Sunday, America's Game of the Week, at home versus Dallas, and talk trash to Cowboys fans. I can't even talk about the Sunday after Thanksgiving and talk to my friends that are Eagles fans. I can't. Like, the rest of the schedule: at Buffalo, at Detroit, versus Dallas, versus Tennessee, at Philly, at Chicago, bye week. We host the champs. We go to Miami. We host the Vikings. We host the Lions. There's no way possible the Green Bay Packers have a winning record at the end of this season. It's just not possible.
Yeah,
the Bills game is a loss.
To get 6. Yep.
The Cowboys game is a loss. The Eagles game is a loss. The Dolphins game and the Vikings game at the end of the season are, quite frankly, going to be losses as well. That's going to be a bad Christmas, dude. That's going to be a really bad Christmas afternoon. I can tell you that. That's going to suck. It's going to be a terrible Christmas afternoon. Like, the only games that are winnable are Detroit, Tennessee, Chicago, and Detroit again. But we always, for some reason, struggle against Detroit. The Bears actually look competent, and I didn't think they were going to win a game this season. And this team sucks.
It sucks.
This team sucks. This team is terrible. And I have nothing left. I have nothing left. There's nothing left in me. I don't have any more in me to look, bro. Don't ask me to bet on the Packers, because it's not happening. Don't ask me about how I feel about the game coming up, because the answer is no. Do not ask me if I think the Packers are going to make a move before the deadline, because we all know the answer is no. I have nothing left to give. I have given, and I have given, and I have given, and I have given. I feel like a woman that has been in a very long relationship, a very long, stressful relationship, that has reached her wit's end. I have reached my wits in with Matt LaFleur, Mark Gutekunst, Mark Murphy, Brian Gutekunst, Mark Murphy, Aaron Rodgers, and the entire Green Bay Packers organization. I'm done. I have nothing left. I'm not watching a Packers game the rest of this season. I am not looking up a Packers stat the rest of this season. The only thing Packers related I will be doing is updating the graphic for my show with Peyton, The Rundown with Peyton Marcus. Check it out every Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, to see if the Packers have won or lost, to update the graphic. That's it. I am not picking the Packers to win another game the rest of the season. Bench Aaron Rodgers, start Jordan Love. I don't give a damn. This season is done. This season is over with. This team sucks. Now, I have talked about the Green Bay Packers 26 minutes and 16 seconds too long. So let's move on from this. Who else is on the docket? The Bucs, another bad offensive football team so far in the NFC.
You unplugged your mic again.
It's not a good day for me. I got to be honest. It is not a good day for me. So the Bucs are off to a very slow, very rough start. They lost 21-3, I believe it was, to the Carolina Panthers, who are fire sailing right now. They're giving people away for what seems like whatever the highest bid is. Should we be as worried about the Bucs as we are about some of the other teams that are surprisingly off to bad starts, or do we still give Tom Brady and the Bucs the benefit of the doubt because of who their quarterback is?
I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's not just because they have Tom Brady at quarterback, but it's the division they play in, right? Obviously, you talk about the Carolina Panthers are 2-5. The New Orleans Saints, I think they're and they're at 2-5 as well. And then the Atlanta Falcons and the Bucs are tied at 3-4 for the lead in the division. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, although they don't have the easiest schedule, especially looking at it now, Ravens this week, then Rams, Seahawks. Browns should be easy. Saints, Niners, Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers, and then Falcons. So they don't have the easiest schedule, but I truly think 7 wins this division. Do I think that they probably get more than 7 wins? I'd say yeah. But you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're dealing with a lot of injuries on the offensive line, and some of that is stuff that's not going to happen, right? Ali Marpet's not going to come out of retirement. Ryan Jensen, I don't know if he's going to be coming back this season, and if it is, it's still not for a while, right? When it comes to running the ball, they can't. As much as I think that the Packers can't, the Buccaneers can't run the ball. They're averaging as a team 3 yards per carry, and that includes runs from Julio Jones, where he's averaging 8.5. Scotty Miller has 1 rush for 8 yards. But yeah, Leonard Fournette's averaging 3.5, and Rachaad White, he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. They're just overall not a very good team running the football. I think I saw a stat earlier today. It's like they're averaging the least amount of rushing yards in NFL history per game when it comes to a single season. I think that they can't run the football. But Brady doesn't look super fantastic either. Yeah, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. I've been fooled by that stat line in 2017 and 2018 or 2018. And in 2019, Aaron Rodgers. Those stats they're not as good as they look. That's not what they are. He's at 1 touchdown a game. You've played 7 games. You've thrown 8 touchdowns. Yeah, his completion percentage is all right. But his average, passing yards only getting 6.6 per. He's only been sacked 10 times, which isn't super bad for how bad the offensive line has actually been playing. But look, they're not getting any push when it comes to running the ball. But when, again, you take a look at their division, who do they have to be scared of? No one. Nobody. Nada. The Saints, what? Are you scared of Jameis Winston? Are you scared of Andy Dalton? I'm scared of neither. PJ Walker, yeah, he just beat you. I doubt he'll do it again. The week before, he threw 1 pass or completed 1 pass past the line of scrimmage. I don't think it happens again. And then Marcus Mariota. I don't trust him. They still can't find a way to use Kyle Pitts. He only had 3 catches last week. I'm going to give them the ultimate benefit of the doubt, just like I think I'm probably going to give the San Francisco 49ers when it comes to the NFC West, or even probably the Rams over the Seahawks. Their division's just flat out bad. They're the most experienced team in that division. They're the best team in that division. They'll wind up coming out on top. Do I think that they're Super Bowl contenders? I mean, I guess anything goes really in the NFC as a Super Bowl contender, but they're not they're not on the same level as the Eagles. I know we'll get into them a little bit later, but they're not on the same level as the Eagles. They're not on the same level as the Cowboys. I think they're probably, if they were in a playoff game right now against the Giants, I got to be honest, I don't know who I'm taking. And that should be a game that's like, I should have an idea who I'm taking. I should be taking
Sure.
Tom Brady over Daniel Jones. But currently, as they're playing right now, as bad as their wide receivers have been playing, as bad as Tom Brady's been playing, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's not looking good for the rest of the season for him.
One of the other things I've been right about is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wouldn't be that good. I didn't think they'd have a losing record through 7 weeks of the season. But listen, as I've said a lot over the course of the offseason, and really since the season has begun, Tom Brady struggles when the center of his offensive line is not protected and is not secure. The center of his offensive line has not been protected, has not been secure, and as a result, Tom Brady has struggled. Now, here's the deal. You are right. This division is relatively a lock for the Buccaneers because of who is in the division. You got the Falcons, you have the Panthers, and you have the Saints, who have not been what I personally thought they would be, which is a potential Super Bowl contending football team. A lot of that has to do with injury. A lot of that has to do with their inability just to get stuff done. With that being said, I still look at the Bucs and I say, this is a division they can win. This is a division they should win. And because of that, I guess to a degree, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. But as you mentioned, I don't know if right now the Bucs are the 4 seed. The Bucs being the 4 seed right now would mean that they hold on. Let me pull up the notes here. So if the Bucs are the 4 seed, they'd be playing the Giants, as you mentioned. I don't think they'd beat the Giants. I don't think they beat the Cowboys. I don't think they beat any team that's in the playoffs right now in the NFC in a playoff game, except for maybe the Seahawks, because it's Geno Smith at quarterback. Right? That's it. I have no faith in the Buccaneers beyond this point, but I have a little bit more faith in them than I do in the Packers. But not to go back down that rabbit hole. The Bucs are just such a tough thing. They're such a tough team to figure out because it is Tom Brady, and we always give Tom Brady that little extra, like, because he's the GOAT, because he has all these championships, and because of like who he is and who he showed us to be. But the Bucs are bad. Like, the Bucs are really bad. Like, and I think another thing that's gone unnoticed is this defense hasn't been as good as I think a lot of us thought it was going to be with Todd Bowles being the head coach. It hasn't been a bad defense, but it hasn't been the elite defense that we saw flying around the field a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. Hasn't been the defense that we saw flying around a couple years the year after the Super Bowl. Like, this hasn't been a great defense so far this season, and that's unfortunate. But again, it's really hard for me to talk trash about anybody's team because my team is hot garbage. And as long as my team is hot garbage, I've really learned the concept of like keeping my mouth shut when I'm not allowed to speak. And I think it's really hard for me to kind of say that the Bucs are trash or say that anyone else is trash because my team is trash. But there is one team that I have no problem talking about how garbage they are. And that's because I told everybody that they were going to suck. That's the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos suck. And Russell Wilson is cooked. Like, Russell Wilson is garbage. Now, look, props to Russell Wilson for doing high knees on the plane to London at 3 o'clock in the morning while his team was asleep. Good for you, bud. But it's not going to look. I'll tell you right now, the Jaguars are going to beat the Denver Broncos this Sunday.
It wouldn't shock me.
And that is my pick. And this is the only time tonight I will feel comfortable talking trash about another team, even though the Packers suck, because I've been saying that the Broncos were going to suck since they made the trade for Russell Wilson in the offseason. How bad are the Broncos, though? Like,
well, I mean,
is there any hope for the Broncos heading into the back half of this season at all to figure this out?
I mean, you said that, like, you know, when it comes to comparing seasons, I think their season's going way worse than ours. At least we knew what the problem with our team was.
This is true.
And the Broncos now, they know what the problem with their team is. The only problem is that they signed him to a 5-year extension. They got him under contract for 6 more seasons after this. Russell's cooked. He's cooked. To be completely honest with you, because here's the thing. Russ, through the first however many years of his career, whatever it was, 10 years, the best thing about him for Seahawk fans is that he was reliable, right? You knew what you were going to get out of Russ. You knew that you were going to get a player who was comfortable game managing, and then at the end of the game, you could let him loose. This year, and even to some extent last year, I don't care what the stats say, 25 touchdowns and 6 picks. You ask a Seahawk fan if he looked right the second half of last year. No, he didn't. And why was that? Because he rushed himself back from an injury, right? And then this year, he's gotten injured. He sure has gotten injured. and he's rushing
Russell
himself
Wilson
back
does
again.
not have an hamstring injury. Russell Wilson does not have a partially torn labrum. Russell Wilson sucks.
Let's
Bad.
just pretend he does have the injury for a second. What makes you think rushing it back this time is going to be any better? What makes you seriously like? What makes you think that? I think the problem really is I think a lot of the stuff that's fixable with quarterbacks. I think you can fix bad throws. You can fix bad throws. You can be more accurate. We've seen Russell Wilson be more accurate. You can't fix bad decisions. And he's had a lot of bad decisions this year. You could honestly take it back to the game against the Colts on whatever it was, Thursday Night Football. He had 3 of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen. 3 just mind-blowingly bad decisions from Russell Wilson. Both of them, 2 on interceptions. He did for some reason he threw an arm punt from the 30-yard line when they were in field goal range. He then tested Stephon Gilmore when all they needed was the first down. And then he had a person wide open on a slant into the end zone. And he blanked on it. And then he tried to fire it through like 5 guys.
He's not
Russell Wilson is so beyond cooked. Beyond cooked. And again, here's what's going to happen. The Broncos fans and all the Russell Wilson stands, all of them, they're going to like concoct this thing in their head. Oh, it was Nathaniel Hackett. That's who was doing bad, not Russ. Here's the thing. Nathaniel Hackett might be calling bad plays. He might be. You know what play he's not calling? Hey, Russ, fire into double coverage. Hey, Russ, throw a pick. Underthrow the deep pass, Russ. That's what play he's not calling. He's not telling Russ to throw interceptions. If he was doing that, sure, you have a case. He's not calling the throw an interception play. He's not. Yeah. I promise you. He's not calling the run around and get sacked play. He's not calling the take. For as much as he's getting paid. And again, Rodgers can get some of this criticism too. For as much as he's getting paid, he sucks. And the biggest thing with Russell Wilson, and I've been saying it for years. I have been saying it for years and years and years, and none of the Seahawks fans that I talk to want to listen to me. He runs himself into sacks. At some point, the offense, it's not a coincidence that the weird bad offensive line issues follow him around. Because you know what? No one was saying this was a bad offensive line in the preseason. No one was saying it in the offseason when they traded for him. Everyone, it's a top roster. It's going to be a top roster. They're going to be one of the AFC contenders. They're going to finish. They're going to finish last in that division by a long shot.
Just because he's in the comments of this episode right now, and I told him on Twitter last week that if he didn't show up before the 31st, I was going to come crash his show.
There you go.
I'm putting Steezy A. Smith on Front Street right now because I sat here for an entire offseason and I told this man, I said, look, Russ is not going to do that well. I told him Nathaniel Hackett, first of all, this narrative that Nathaniel Hackett resurrected Aaron Rodgers' career, where did that come from?
Complete
where did that come from?
Complete
Steezy probably started it because wherever it came from was wrong. Falsely wrong. And you're seeing right, like Nathaniel Hackett is calling bad plays. Russell Wilson is making bad decisions. I sat here and I said, is Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton really that much of an upgrade, if anything, from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett? No. Is this defense going to be what it was supposed to be last season with everyone being back? No, it wasn't. Why? Because you have a new DC, you have a new head coach, things change. Roll with the punches. The Denver Broncos suck. I told everybody that the Broncos would win 8 games this season and finish dead last in the division, and I got laughed at. We're sitting here. It's week 7. The Broncos have won 3 games, 2 games. They won 2 games all season. They should have 1 win on the season. I don't know how they beat the Texans. They don't deserve that win at all. And to be completely honest, the Broncos, quite frankly, should be winless. The only win that they've earned was the win against the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Las Vegas Raiders also suck. Like, the Broncos have been a historically bad football team, and I had to listen to an entire offseason of Steezy A. Smith sit here and tell me, oh, well, Tom Brady went to the Bucs 2 years ago, and they won a Super Bowl, and Matt Stafford went to the Rams last year, and they won a Super Bowl, and it's only right that Russell Wilson goes to the Broncos. Listen. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos over the next 7 years are not going to sniff a Super Bowl. The only Super Bowl that will be in Denver or be near Denver is if and only if the Super Bowl ever ends up in Denver. And unfortunately, because the Broncos don't play in a dome, the Super Bowl's never going to be in Denver. There will be no Lombardi trophies being sent to Denver, Colorado, to Mile High Stadium. It's not happening because the Broncos suck. Look, Javonte Williams, I feel bad for him because he tore his ACL. He was playing really good football. Melvin Gordon's your running back now, and he can't hold on to the ball at all. That's what he get paid to do. He sucks. Like, this team is god awful. And sometimes in life, you cannot sit here and think that things are going to be different because you get moved to another location. Russ, I get it. You didn't want to be in Seattle anymore. That's fine. You thought going to Denver would be the best place for you to go to win championships and win football games. You've won 2 of them. Meanwhile, your former team in Seattle, without you, with a worse quarterback, with not as much continuity offensively and defensively, is 4-3. Russ sucks. The Broncos suck. Nathaniel Hackett sucks. Stevie A. Smith, I love you, but on this take specifically, you suck too. And I told you that if you didn't show up here today, I was going to come crash your next show. So whenever Steezy's next show is, Emmitt, you let me know, and I'll be there.
I got you.
I'm sick of him dunking the wreck. Justin Marvel, you too. Everybody that filled my comments telling me that the Broncos are going to be good, I'm coming for all of you because I get so sick of being wrong that when I'm right, I have to make fun of all of you for being right. I'm coming for all of you. This is absurd. The Broncos are terrible. They're the worst red zone offense in football. They're one of the worst offenses in general in football. They're one of 5 offenses in football so far that don't average 20 points a game. They suck. Like, they're really, 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 really bad.
And the craziest part of all of it, to be honest with you, is that the fact that their schedule doesn't get any easier. They had to get off to a hot start. Like, they had to in order to have a chance. Because, listen, they have the Jaguars, and although I don't think the Jaguars are necessarily great, they play well in London. They do play well in London. Okay, let's hypothetically, let's just say that the Broncos beat the Titans. Let's say they beat the Titans and the Jaguars, so then they pull up at, what would that be? They're 4-5. Here's the rest of their schedule. Raiders, L. Panthers, probably a win. So then there you go. You're looking at what? What would that be? You're looking at 5-6.
5-5. They'd be
or because
5-6.
Yeah, 5-6. Let's pretend you're at 5-6. Again, this is if you win 3 of your next 4. Then you go Ravens, loss. Chiefs, loss. Cardinals, probably a loss. Rams, probably a loss. Chiefs again, loss. Chargers, loss. Hey, but it's okay. Hey, Broncos fans, it is okay. Because you don't even have your first round pick. That's going to Seattle. Have fun, guys. Have fun with Russell Wilson for the next 6 years. Yikes.
Broncos suck.
Broncos country.
They suck.
Let's ride.
Yeah. And you lose a football game, and your first inclination is to say Broncos country. Let's ride. Russell Wilson is cooked. Wilson's cooked. The Broncos are also cooked. Let's stay in the AFC. Let's talk about, I think, probably something that I don't think anyone saw coming. Matt Ryan's been benched in Indianapolis. The days of Matt Ryan as an Indianapolis Colts so far this season seem to be over. Sam Ehlinger is now going to be the new starting quarterback moving forward. Head coach Frank Reich made it very clear the benching had nothing to do with his injury and everything to do with this was going to happen whether Matt Ryan was injured or not, which means it sounds as if going into this, they were going to give Matt Ryan an 8-week grace period, so it seems, to figure things out. The Colts are 3-1. I would assume that unless Sam Ehlinger plays the way that he was playing in Texas, and I was a big fan of Sam when he was in Texas a couple years. Like I loved watching him play football for Texas, and I loved the draft. I loved the Colts drafting him to eventually become the starter. If that's what this means, then what this means is we're never going to see Matt Ryan play football for the Indianapolis Colts again, which means we probably have just seen the end of Matt Ryan unless Sam gets hurt, knock on wood, or something crazy happens to Sam. I would assume that this is going to be Sam's team from week 8 all the way until the end. Is it possible that with Sam at the helm at quarterback, the Colts are 3-1, so they're perfectly 500. They are 3-1 this season. Is it possible with 10 games left in the season that Sam Ehlinger can bring in just enough to maybe get the Colts into the playoffs this season, or do you think that they're done and they're just getting him reps for next season?
I mean, I think a little bit of both. They have a fairly not super challenging schedule the rest of the year. Again, right, you said they're sitting at 3-1, so they get the Commanders next week. They get the Commanders and Patriots the next 2 weeks. I see those as, I think that they probably have a quarterback. If it's not an advantage, I think it's a push. These next couple weeks, the Raiders, that's probably a loss. Eagles, probably a loss. Steelers, again, I think that you see them middling at 500. Vikings, Chargers, Giants, 3 out of the last 4 weeks, and then finishing up with the Texans. I think that they can stay afloat. I think that finishing at a 9-8, I think, is super reasonable for them. but truly,
Or for
they're
them to
getting
be 8-8,
or they'd be 8-8-1.
they have the
Sorry,
tie. Yeah.
but I truly think that, to be super honest with you, they're getting Sam Ehlinger reps. They are.
Yeah.
I think that they're starting to realize maybe we can't just dole out picks for washed quarterbacks. They're going to have to find somebody young. They're going to have to, and sadly for them, I think that the Colts roster is good enough to the point where they're never going to be in a flat out rebuild. Like they're not going to have.
Yeah. They're only being a rebuild if they just decide to blow it up
They're the only way that they're going to be picking number one or anywhere in the first 5 slots is if they're trying to lose. And I don't see with the roster that they have trying to lose, right? Obviously, they
And even
thought
if you try to lose with this roster, there's enough talent on this roster where you're still probably not going to lose football games.
Exactly.
Especially if you're playing in the AFC South. You're going to win enough games where you won't be probably a top 10 in this division.
Yeah, I think they're getting them reps, but I mean, you take a look at the rest of the roster. They're set up to a point where I think Sam Ehlinger can succeed, right? Obviously, he's a lot more athletic than Matt Ryan. Not a whole lot of people are less athletic than Matt Ryan. But Jonathan Taylor at running back, obviously, they're going to feed him the ball. And if they don't feed him the ball, they still have, a bunch of speed in Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman Jr., and Alec Pierce are pretty solid wide receivers. Obviously, I think Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman being their second-round picks each of the past couple of years. Mo Alley Cox is solid at tight end. That offensive line, and that's been part of the problem really with Matt Ryan. You saw how many turnovers he had. I believe he's leading the league in interceptions so far this year. He's been sacked 24 times. 9 picks. I think he has like 11 fumbles or something that I saw. He's been turning the ball over a lot. And that's something that, especially when you don't have an uber talented team, because I think that this team's talented, but it's not like over the edge talented where you can play bad football and still wind up getting wins. The amount of times he's been turning the ball over. And I think that that's what Sam Ehlinger is going to have to try to not do as much. Obviously, I think if they are able to get to a point where Sam Ehlinger is not turning the ball over, maybe if he's not even throwing the ball 25 times a game, you keep him around that 19 to 23 mark, I think you're probably in a good space here. I really think the only times you probably get blown out the rest of the season, Eagles probably, Cowboys maybe, Vikings maybe. But the rest of those games you're going to be in. The Commanders and Patriots should be wins. The Raiders are keeping everybody close except for the Texans last week. The Steelers aren't going to beat anybody, especially with their quarterback situation, which might be worse than yours. The Chargers for sure aren't going to beat anybody. They invent new ways to lose every week. The Giants, again, I don't trust them. And again, you look at the Texans and they're going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. You have a good enough team to the point where I think that they can make it. And especially in an AFC that I don't think has been super outstanding. Is that fair to say? Like, I think you take a look, and even some of the teams at the top, how many of those teams do you buy? The Chiefs, yes. The Bills, yes, obviously. The Baltimore Ravens, they've been shaky, but good enough to believe in them, and the Cincinnati Bengals probably as well.
Probably.
The Dolphins.
Don't be one of those people that are hesitant on the Cincinnati Bengals. You smashed by on the Bengals all the time.
Yeah.
You smash by on the Bengals until Burrow retires.
All right.
Is how it works. The Bengals, I can't wait. We're going to talk about the Bengals in a second.
But I think you look, and with the rest of the AFC doesn't scare me a whole lot. Like the Dolphins is a maybe for me, but the Jets, they're 5-2, but I got to be honest, I don't really care. The Patriots they just got blown out by the Bears.
The Jets being 5-2?
No, not in the slightest, to be super honest with you. Because Zach Wilson's not playing well.
That's fair.
Zach Wilson is not playing well. I think that they've also kind of, the teams that they've gotten some of their wins against, I think it's fair to criticize, or not criticize, but not take them seriously, right? Again, they beat the Browns by 1. They beat the Steelers. They beat the Steelers in their quarterback situation by 4. They beat Skylar Thompson by 23. They beat the Packers, who we've established aren't good. And then they just beat the backup to Russell Wilson, the person who the Broncos decided was worse than Russell Wilson through the first 6 games. So I think that, at least for them, I'm not buying. So I do see a scenario where if they don't win the division, they could potentially sneak in as a wild card team. But yeah, I think for the most part, they're just getting Sam Ehlinger reps for the future.
That's fair. I agree. And I'm excited to see Sam play football on an NFL level. I honestly thought that Sam would be the starter heading into the season after they let go Carson, but clearly that wasn't the case, of course, because they decided to trade Carson for Matt Ryan. So as a Sam Ehlinger fan, I am happy to see him finally get some reps. Let's talk about some Super Bowl stuff really quickly because we're almost halfway through the season. Before we talk about a projected Super Bowl, let's talk about the Super Bowl matchup from last season. And I'm very excited for this. So I watched everyone come out and say that the Bengals run last season was a fluke, and they doubled down on that when the Bengals struggled. Since then, the Bengals have won 4 of their last 5. They're sitting at 4-3. They're tied for second place in the division right now, or tied for first place, in the division right now with the Baltimore Ravens. And I haven't heard a peep. So I'm just wondering, where did all the pitchforks and the torches go for all the guys that said that the Bengals weren't going to be good and that they were going to miss playoffs? And more importantly, why are we not talking about the defending champion Rams being 3-3? I am going to keep asking this question until I get an answer. I'm annoying that way. The defending champion LA Rams are 3-3. Now the brakes beat off of them opening night at home on, well, it wasn't ring night, but it was banner night at home against the Bills. They barely beat the Falcons. Like, the Rams have not looked good. Matt Stafford has not looked good. They're openly considering trading Cam Akers right now because he is not a part of the offense, which is a shock to me because I'd say he's the best running back on the roster. He's better than Henderson Jr. in my estimation anyway, but he's not getting touches. Allen Robinson has been ghost town. Cooper Kupp has been Cooper Kupp, sure, but this team by and large hasn't been that good. By the way, I just want to put this out there. The Rams are 3-3, and while it's, I guess you can say it's okay and you want to give them the benefit of the doubt like you talked about earlier, but again, why are we not worried about the Rams? Like, it's very easy to be worried about the Bengals and expect the Bengals to regress back to their mean because of how long they were the Bungles. But the Bengals have looked really good. Joe Burrow's gotten it together, as has Jamar Chase, as has T. Higgins. Like, this entire team is starting to figure it out, and I think they're starting to figure it out at the right time, which is when we start seeing really at this point in the season which teams are legit and which teams are not. The Los Angeles Rams, I think right now in the NFC, are the 7th seed. They are on the bubble right now in the NFC. I'm not saying it's a for sure thing, right? But for the looks of it, the NFC East is putting in 3 teams: Philly, New York, Dallas. I think all 3 of those teams, more so Philly and Dallas. But I still think that the Giants can hold up just enough where I can say that 3 of these teams are virtually locked for the playoffs. I think the Vikings are locked for the playoffs. And I think the Buccaneers, despite being 3-5, are locked for the playoffs. That's 5 teams right there. I do think that the 49ers are going to be able to turn around, especially now that they have Christian McCaffrey on the roster, now that they've traded for him. So I think that's the 6th team. Is it safe to say, or is it an overreaction to say that it is more likely at this point in the season, is it more likely that the Rams miss the playoffs than the Bengals? Because I think yes. I think it is extremely safe to say that the Rams at this point are more likely to miss the playoffs than the Cincinnati Bengals. And it'd be the first time in a long time that the reigning Super Bowl champion didn't at the very least make it back to the playoffs the following season. I think that's where I am, at least with the Rams, is that I could see a scenario where the Rams lose out on the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'll take it a step further and say that they're going to miss out on the playoffs. I think you look at this roster and they're getting the full range of emotions on the, less need F them picks attitude. You're getting the entire range of emotions. You got the Super Bowl, but the problem and the reason that not a lot of teams have done it is because it depletes your depth by a lot. You take a look, that offensive line has one solid starter, Brian Allen, and they're just getting him back this week, and they haven't had him since I believe it was week 1. You take a look offensively. Again, you talked about Cam Akers. It looks like he's on the trade block. Darrell Henderson Jr., I believe he's dealing with a small injury right now. Malcolm Brown is their 3rd string running back. He's going to be bumped up to 2 pretty quick. You're seeing what a lot of NFC North people saw with Matthew Stafford for his career. Excuse me. A lot of people who did not watch Matthew Stafford play every game forgot about these sort of games. They forgot that Matthew Stafford, at the end of the day, some of the reasons that they weren't winning were because of him. That's not the entire reason, but some of the reasons were him. Even if you just want to take out ring night, the 1 touchdown and 3 interception performance that he put out there, that's fine. Whatever. He still, through the other 5 games so far this season, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's not good. He's not playing well, and he's getting sacked, and he's getting hit a lot. 22 times he's been sacked so far this season. And again, when you don't have a running game, or at least a successful running game, this is what's going to happen. Then you take a look at the defense, and the defense, at least from my eyes, hasn't been what it's been cracked up to be. It hasn't been as dominant of a defense as it was last year. It hasn't. What was it? Was it last year? Was it the number 1 overall scoring defense? If it wasn't number 1, it was number 2. I think
the Bills have the number 1 scoring on defense.
Yeah, and the Rams, if you take a look, they're middle of the pack. The Rams are giving up more points per game, slightly, but more points per game than the Packers are right now. And the Packers defense, we are all acknowledging, is playing like crap. Again, they're getting the full range of emotions from the F them picks movement. This is why teams don't do it, because you don't have their offensive line is horrible. Their running back depth isn't good. Allen Robinson is a strikeout right now. It's a strikeout. They took a swing, and congrats for taking a swing. But if you would have watched Chicago Bears football the past couple of years, they would have told you, don't take Allen Robinson. They would have told that to you. At some point, I was so anti Allen Robinson, and I got into a huge argument on the Bold about it because someone was saying that them having Allen Robinson was depth. And I'm like, watch him play. Watch him play and tell me that's depth. He's not getting very wide open. He's not putting effort into his routes. And I think that truly, as a team, the reason we're not talking about the Rams as much is because truly, I don't think people care about the Rams, to be super honest with you. They made all these trades, and yeah, the Super Bowl run was exciting last year, and they had the stars, and they had Odell and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford, all that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think people care because we know they don't have fans. They know they don't have fans. They got to the point where they weren't letting people with the San Francisco area code buy tickets for the NFC Championship last year because they were terrified. And then you look at the rest of their schedule for the rest of the season. Off of this bye week, they get the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners own them. Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay. They get Tampa. They get Arizona. New Orleans should be a layup for them. But then you get Kansas City. Usually you have Seattle twice left on the schedule, and that should be fine for you. But man, you get Vegas. That's not going to be easy. The Packers aren't playing well. I still like them against the Rams. I know you took that bet with Squabo.
Who hasn't said a word to me since, which I don't appreciate.
Of course. But hey, those they don't have a whole lot of layups the rest of the year on their schedule, and it's not like that their team's just going to all of a sudden get better. Their leading rusher hasn't surpassed 62 yards so far this season. Their offense has been Cooper Kupp or bust, and 3 times out of 6 this year, it's been bust. And you really take a look at those wins. Again, their win versus Atlanta, they were up big and their defense kind of collapsed. But at the end of the day, Marcus Mariota, after being down whatever it was, 31 to whatever, I think it was 13 maybe, after being that, all of a sudden is driving down with a potential to win the game. Then you beat the Cardinals, and the Cardinals didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not tooting my horn to that one. And then you beat Carolina. Congrats. Everyone who's played Carolina so far this year, except for the Saints, has lost. You don't get brownie points for me for beating bad teams. Yeah, I think they're going to miss the playoffs, and you can mark that down in pen.
Just super excited to see Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals back into the playoffs this season. I know everyone said they were going to miss the playoffs. I did say that they were going to win the division by landslide. That doesn't seem that it's going to be the case, but I do still think that the division is theirs to lose, and I do think that they have gotten on the right track after having won 4 of their last 5, and I think that they can still win the division. Now, from last year's Super Bowl matchup to what could be this year's Super Bowl matchup, the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills, number 1 seed in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. It appears that they would be the best 2 teams in football, no matter how you slice it, whether you have Bills first, Eagles second, or Eagles first, Bills second. Is this the most likely Super Bowl matchup for this year in the desert in Arizona, or is there a chance that one of these other teams, not named the Bills or the Eagles, could make it to and represent their conference in the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really take a look, and at this point, it's down to about 4 teams total. I think that from the AFC, we know who the 2 contenders are. It's Bills versus the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. That we know that we're looking down the barrel at it. The only question, and I still think it's a question, but the only question is where it's going to be. Is it going to be at Arrowhead, or is it going to be in Buffalo? When it comes to the NFC, it looks like it's Philly right now. And as much as I don't like saying that, I don't like Philly. As much as I don't like saying that, it looks like it's going to be Philly, right? Because it doesn't appear that anyone's slowing them down. They have one of the best defensive rosters, if not the best defensive roster and depth chart in all of football. When you look
And they
at
just
it,
added Robert Quinn to that today.
exactly. You look at their pass rush, right? Obviously, Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Robert Quinn. And that's not even counting Javon Hargrave and Josh Sweat and Jordan Davis as some depth in there. Then you take a look at their secondary, and man, it's probably what? I'd say it's probably one of the best.
They have the best secondary. They have
secondary
the
in
best
football.
secondary in football.
James
Absolutely.
Bradbury and Darius Slade, 2 shutdown corners on the outside. Marcus Epps and C.J. Gardner-Johnson up at safety. They defensively, I think, best roster in football. And then you take a look offensively. And while I don't think that they have great depth at wide receiver, when you're a running team, I don't think you need to. You don't have to have as much depth. And you know what? Having A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith as your 2 best wide receivers and not a whole lot afterwards, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially when they finally discovered the thing that I didn't buy about the Eagles last year, the thing that I didn't buy, and I didn't buy it especially because I knew that he could be good, is Miles Sanders. They finally figured out maybe we should use Miles Sanders a little bit. Maybe we should do it. Right? He already has 105 rushing attempts on the year, only 11 catches on 13 targets. But, he's been better throughout this year, 4.6 yards a carry. He's already up to 4 touchdowns. But you take a look, and especially in these closer games, he's the one scoring the touchdowns. They've had 2 blowouts this year against Washington and against the Minnesota Vikings. And then they had a really close game against the Arizona Cardinals. But every other game, Detroit Lions, they won by 3. He had a touchdown. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they wound up winning by 8. He had 2 touchdowns. Against Dallas, he had 1 touchdown. You take a look, and they really are probably one of the most complete rosters, for sure the most complete roster in the NFC. But I think, and again, Tampa Bay and probably San Francisco are the only teams that I think can push them. San Francisco, I think it's going to take some time because I truly do not care what seed San Francisco gets in as. They're going to be dangerous regardless where they are.
Oh yeah,
they could be the 7 seed. They could be they're not going to be the 1 seed, but they could be the 7 seed to the 2 seed, and I'm equally as terrified for them anywhere. I think with teams like Tampa, teams like Green Bay is probably not going to be there, but I'll throw them in there. Teams like Minnesota, the home field advantage really means something to all of those teams, I think. But Philly has probably one of the best home field advantages in all of football. And right now they have the inside track to the 1 seed. They have a fantastic schedule for them the rest of the year. I mean, I wouldn't say 17-0 is necessarily on the table, but I wouldn't say it's off.
It's on the table.
I wouldn't say it's off the table.
I think when I think now here's the thing. When I was first doing their schedule, and if you need to, if you want me to show you the proof, I can show you the proof. I did have the Eagles starting the season off 6-0. I had them going into their bye at 6-0. I thought that was the case. And I've said this as recently as a couple weeks ago. I think it's not just 17-0 that's on the table. I think we want to be a little bit more realistic and look kind of ahead of look just at what's closer to us and not so much what's deep into the rearview mirror. You have Pittsburgh coming up this week. You have a game against the Packers, I think, which is going to be week 12. You have I think they have the Giants in there somewhere as well, and they have Indianapolis. Like they have I would say a shot to at least make it out of Green Bay at what would be 12-0. I think the most difficult part of their schedule is going to be their last 5 weeks. They get the Giants twice and the Cowboys once. They have the Bears and Saints sprinkled in there as well. Yeah. And maybe those this is a really good football team. And to your point about the 49ers, and so I'm going to agree with you. I do think that as far as in the AFC, we all know it's Bills and Chiefs. It's going to be a matter of if it's going to be in Buffalo or in Arrowhead. And as it stands right now, if the playoffs start tomorrow, that game would be in Buffalo because they're the number 1 seed in the AFC. I am really, really, really locked in on, and I'm saying this for the first time now on the show, and so that it's on the record, I'm really locked in on a 49ers-Eagles NFC Championship game. And the reason why is because we talk a lot about defenses being able to travel, and those 2 teams have really good defenses. The 49ers are struggling right now because their defense is injured, but they also have 2 really good run games. And the 49ers already had a great running game, and now you're adding a guy in Christian McCaffrey who is, when healthy, one of the best backs in football, not just with his ability to run the ball, but obviously also with his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. You compare that against another team in the Philadelphia Eagles, whose identity was already to run the football. They established that last season. To your point, they tapped into Miles Sanders a little bit more this season. It's worked out for them. But now they have the best defense in football, at least on paper. I think they have the number 2 scoring defense because the Bills has the number 1 scoring defense. I think if my memory serves me correctly, but you have CJ Gardner-Johnson, you have, Josh Sweat and all those guys you mentioned. This defense has been fantastic. And can I just say, because I don't think his name has been put into the conversation yet, and so I'm going to do it. Darius Slay, I think, should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I know it's not sexy to put a cornerback in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, but he needs to be in it. He shut down a lot of really good receivers so far this season. He had his way against Terry McLaurin. He had his way against Justin Jefferson. He's had his way against every receiver that he's been locked up against. And not to mention this, he has allowed the least amount of receiving yards so far this season. He's allowed a little over, I think it's like 105 yards so far when targeted this season, which is the least in the league. And I believe James Bradbury is like third at 133. But Darius Slay needs to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I know we want to give some love to Michael Parsons, and rightfully so, because of how great he's been, especially how influential he was in making sure that the Cowboys could stay afloat without Dak Prescott. But I do think, me personally, that Darius Slay should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year because of what he's been able to do. But I am super locked in on a Eagles 49ers NFC Championship game because, as you mentioned, the 49ers have to get in. Like, the 49ers, like, one of those teams in March Madness that, like, if they're in, they're dangerous all the time. And the 49ers have consistently been that team that if they're in, they are going to be dangerous because they're hard to game plan for. They're going to run the football, and despite knowing that, it's hard to stop them from running the football. I think George Kittle this season, because he's been more available, because he hasn't been as hurt, that's going to be another wrinkle that I think we haven't really been able to see much the last couple of seasons because he's been in and out of the lineup due to injury. And of course, you have Deebo Samuel, who now is looking to be more of a wide receiver. And when you have a true running back in Christian McCaffrey, he can do that. George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel being out there to catch balls, and you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. The 49ers have one of the best offensive lines in football. The one concern about them getting there is the health of the defense, because the defense is a little shaken up right now. It is a little beat down. I'm not concerned about Jimmy G at all because we all know how I feel about Jimmy G and what he brings to the table as far as being a quarterback in the NFL. But as it stands right now, I think the most realistic NFC Championship game we have right now is Eagles 49ers. But right now, the 49ers are on the outside looking in. But if they do get in, which I think they will, I think they'll start to get things together and they will get in, they'll be dangerous. And I think they can take it all the way to their NFC Championship game, which would be their second in a row, but more importantly, third in 4 years. But even more importantly, every time Jimmy G steps foot on the football field for the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs, it means they go to an NFC Championship game, which is just another reason why it is important to note that moving on to Trey Lance may not have been that good of an idea the way they did it. But one more year for Jimmy G. I'd like to see the 49ers go out on top just so that Jimmy G can go out on top because I am a Jimmy G fan. But realistically, that probably won't happen. But I do think 49ers, Eagles in the NFC Championship is probably what we're staring down the barrel right now. They just have to get in. And their road to get in is a little bit tougher because of the division they're in and because they have a losing record right now. But I think they'll figure it out and they can get in.
Yeah, no, it's them or it's Philly out of the NFC right now. I really wish I could put the Packers in that conversation, but sadly, I think we're going to be looking at a 3-5 record.
100%.
After Sunday night football.
Whatever the spread in that game is 11.5. I'm taking the over on that. I think we lose.
I'm taking. I'm
smashing the over on that. And for all you other parlayers out there, you want to lock for your parlay, take the over on the spread for the Bills going to or hosting the Packers because they're going to smash us like we've never been smashed before. It's also the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career that the Packers have gone in as double-digit underdogs, which, I mean, rightfully so. We deserve it. So it's always a pleasure to have Emmitt on the show. Thank you, as always, for coming on the show. Please let everybody know where they can find you and all your content.
Of course. Love being on. Again, I think the second time I'm saying I wish it was on better terms. At Emmitt J. Sevores on Instagram and Twitter, at the C Team Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and of course on YouTube. We should be putting out content. I believe I have, let's see, let me count it down. The C Team Pod every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. Usually I don't have it tonight. I think it's getting pushed to Friday or Saturday. Don't exactly have a time yet. At the Wednesday wrap up with Emmitt and Cam, we're talking. It's a little bit more PG-13. So if you want to see me come a little bit more unglued about the Packers, come take a look. Come watch. If you liked what you saw on draft night, you'll probably love this a little bit. And then of course the Bolt every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
It's always a pleasure to have Emmitt on the show. Please send the message to Steezy and Noah that I'm looking for them.
Oh, yeah.
I am looking for them to come back on this show because there are things that need to be discussed and they're ducking the work. As always, you guys know where to find me at GTP Marcus on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Also, on Facebook as well. Just search up my name or search up Go Talk with Marcus and you'll find me. Tomorrow night, as always, Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time. The rundown with Peyton and Marcus, my guy Peyton Dozer, the Peyton Dozer show. We'll be talking a little bit of football, but we'll also be talking on some basketball since this basketball season is back. And of course, we'll continue with our weekly pick'em. I believe Peyton has a 3-game lead on me right now, I think. Which is tough.
Not horrible though. It's
not horrible, but it's not where I want to be in life right now. Not at all what I want to be right now. So I'm hoping as the days go on that we can figure this out and we can get it together. But as it stands right now, he does have a 3-game lead on me, and that's just an unfortunate reality that I have to live with. Also, which I just realized too, Steezy is double ducking the work because me and Steezy are in a fantasy league together, and I play Steezy this week in fantasy. And he's also ducking that smoke too. I just feel like Stevie A. Smith has been ducking me all season. I'm kind of getting sick of it. And if he won't come to me, I'll come to him. So whether it's on the Bolt, whether it's on the next episode of the Stevie A. Smith show, or I don't even know what his show is called. I don't know what it's called. Whatever his show is called, whether it's that, whether it's one of his next episodes of On the Beat with one of these amazing writers he's got going on, whether it's on, he's got so much stuff going on. Whether it's on one of his press sport top 5 plays of the week highlight, whatever it is, the next thing you're doing, Steve A. Smith, I'm gonna be there because you're gonna stop ducking this work. And the longer you duck this work, just the longer the list of stuff comes for me to come talk to you. Like, I feel like you should just get out the way with now. But look, that's your business. You're a grown man. Do how you want to do it. I'm just letting you know that I'm here and I'm waiting for you to come sit across the table from me so that we can duke it out the way that you said we would this season, and we haven't. I get it. You've had a lot going on, but that doesn't sound as cool as me saying that you're ducking the work. So that's the narrative that I'm going with, is that you're ducking the work. And there's that. And basketball season started up too, and we disagree with. Look, Steezy, I just need you to come on the show so you can get this sorted out, because I think what happens is when Steezy's right, he loves to come on the show. When Steezy's wrong, he don't text back. He doesn't respond to phone calls. It's very hard to get a hold of Steezy A. Smith when he's on the wrong side of some of his very egregious takes that he makes, which, look, that's your business. You say you're married to the takes, then till death do you part. Like, you have to come and atone for your sins.
No, I think he says he's not married to his takes, which is a wild thing to say. Which is a very questionable thing, which brings into question your journalistic integrity, Steve A. Smith. But I won't do that. I'm not that kind of person. What I am going to say though is, you need to atone for your sins, because if the shoe is on the other foot, I'd be there. I'd take my beating, and I'd take it proudly. And I just feel like it's time for you to come back on Go Talk to Marcus. It's been a while, right? I don't know if it's jitters. I don't know if it's nervousness. I don't know what it is, but just come to the show, open arms. I'm here for you, and just come atone for your sins. We'll talk about it. We'll move on. Steezy, I don't like being wrong either, but you're not going to keep ignoring me. Like, you're not going to keep leaving me on red. Like, if I text you, I need you to respond. If I call you, I need you to answer. This is okay though. It's because he's wrong. I bet if the Broncos were 7-0, he'd been on this show every week of the season. I could almost guarantee you we would have seen Steezy A. Smith at least 5 times so far this season if the Broncos were 7-0. But they're not, and that's okay. You just have to come and ask for forgiveness, and I'll grant it to you. But whatever. So for Emmitt Sevores of the C Team Pod and the Bolt and all the other great things that he's got going on, this is Marcus of Go Talk Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching. Steezy, I'm coming for you. And as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.